about the finances.
I disagree with that statement. $29,000 on that card.
We owe the orthodontist $100 a month. We took out a loan against John's retirement fund.
Being laid off sucks.
My biggest concern since John's lost his job, if our financial situation doesn't improve, we could lose the house.
The bills,
They keep coming in.
they come in, I put them into an Excel worksheet, and I try and pay the bills to keep the house and to keep the lights on. You can see the family is bringing in $5,714 a month. Our bills are $5,300. That leaves $400 for food, shopping, and fuel. How's a family of 6 live on $400 a month after it's all said and done?
A lot of people think they're on top of their financial situation because they keep track of their finances, and John and Michele are no different. I'm here! What I need to show them is that they have to come up with a clear plan of action to get back on the road to financial security. Hugs! How are you guys?
I personally think I've done pretty darn well without Farnoosh's input at this point, and I'm going to test her on stuff.
It is so awesome to finally sit down with you two. I know that you've made some progress. John, you have a job now.
Yes, I do.
That's great. You're bringing in money.
Bringing in money.
That's really important. But there are some weak spots still. You need to, as I see it, get on a system. I think that you guys are kind of wishy-washy about the finances. I know you're tracking every penny.
I disagree with that statement very much, that I'm wishy-washy with the finances. The common wishy-washy on the bills turn me off right away. I track every single payment that goes out of here, every single bill that comes in.
Talking about money and opening up about your finances is a touchy subject. I didn't want to bring this up. You bought a suit the other day, a couple suits, right? For
yes, I did.
$1,000?
Yes, I did.
You was only supposed to spend $250.
No, it was $300. Let's get it straight.
All right. Sorry, I was off by $50. You were off by $700.
Okay. But
my point is, I'm not saying you don't know what's going on, John. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you know what's going on, but you're not making changes. Where's the action?
What do you mean, where's the action?
Like, you're tracking everything.
Absolutely.
But you're not saving.
No, because I have to pay the bills.
But let's be honest, there are some areas where you can cut back. John, I think sometimes he feels like people are out to get him. Imagine living in a space that measures a mere 168 square feet, more than 14 times smaller than the average American home. Well, it is here inside this tiny house where the proud owners are discovering that less is so much more.
Well, in the past year, we've managed to save everything that I earn. We use my husband's income for our living expenses, and I've been teaching public school, so that's about $3,000 a month that we put in the bank this year.
Hari, her husband Carl, and their 2 young kids, Archer and Ella, recently celebrated their 1-year anniversary in their tiny house. After losing their 1,500 square foot home to financial struggles, the couple took matters into their own hands. Literally, they built this space themselves with just $13,000 in materials. Their goal? To become debt-free and save enough to one day build a new home, mortgage-free. And so far, they're right on track.
Things are going really well with the next project. We're going to build a 16 by 24 unit to begin with, and then we'll branch off of that and add bedrooms.
You may remember seeing this family on The Anderson Show earlier this year, where I joined them on stage. Fascinated by their story, our financially fit team flew down to Virginia to see for ourselves and learn ways we can all downsize. The family's fruit and vegetable garden lets them eat healthier, cut down on their carbon footprint, and slash their grocery bill by as much as 30%. Hari has also been upcycling, as she calls it, taking something old and breathing new life into it.
My favorite upcycling project was the rugs I made for the house. I took old sheets, flat sheets, and crocheted them into rugs.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Monday, June 18th, 2012, and I'm Darko. This is my website, ggnonline.com, and on YouTube it's ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. I have a poll up here: how long until a drone kills the first American on American soil? So far, the majority are saying within the next 2 years, 38% followed by the next year, and it will eventually happen, and we have 4% saying it will never happen. So, okay, so I started off with these videos because I just saw them on YouTube, and I went to go look back and look for another article that I saw, which was about repairing and not buying new things. And I don't know, most of you are aware of how, basically American-made goods were really, really good back in the day. People had really good jobs, they had good benefits, but the quality of the products they were making inside the country were pretty good, and they were made to last. I mean, company's word was behind it, and they have guarantees. But now now you can see that there was that transition period, possibly in the 80s and that into the 90s, into like a throwaway society, right? Where you kind of just reuse, or you kind of just throw things out. Like I see people with cars all the time, buying new cars just because it's a little banged up or something like that. Oh, let's just buy a new car, right? And so now they got people into that mode where they're moving them away from just throwing things out to reusing them, and this is part of the austerity agenda. So, international bankers robbed and pillaged people, and then they bust a few people, real low guys for whatever Ponzi schemes, and you don't actually see the real schemers, the real financial terrorists. But you have to all of a sudden change your lifestyle and get used to it and be happy to be living in a tiny house. I mean, yeah, it may be kind of cool to live in like a little tiny house and stuff like that, but I mean, come on, what if you they have 2 kids? What if you have 4 or 5 kids? You really gonna be able to live in there? I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's good things and bad things, but I just know that there's an agenda behind this, so. But that's what social engineering is all about. It's about when you're screwing people over or you're negatively affecting them, that you want them to be able to enjoy, getting screwed. That's the ultimate form of mind control. I think even Huxley was talking about that, about having people be able to, Zed or Bernays, having them love their enslavement. They would love something that they would otherwise not like, and that's what we're at right now. So survey shows how deeply Americans were whacked by a Great Recession, and it goes on here and it says here, devastation is the proper description for what happened to Americans. It says net worth and income from 2007 and 2010, said making matters worse. The 3 years followed a 7-year period of flat growth in both, and by the end of 2010, household net worth had fallen back to the levels of 1992. I just covered that recently. It says here, families and incomes in the middle 60% of population lost a larger share of their wealth over the 3-year period than the wealthiest and the poorest families. So part of that period I was talking about, like say in the 50s or something like that, even in the 60s, where you had high quality products made in this country, what else did you have? You had a real strong middle class. Well, middle class is kind of a big threat, right? It's a threat to the powers that be because you have wealth and you can actually possibly make changes. World leaders preach austerity from luxury Mexican beach resorts. So Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, famous for preaching the need for austerity to Germany's hapless southern neighbors, is amongst a collection of world leaders attending the G20 summit in luxury of Los Cabos, Mexico. So it says here that the leaders attending the G20 summit will enjoy a stay at the acclaimed Las Ventanas El Paraíso, described as the very definition of luxury. Said amongst other leaders gathering in the hotel by an endless expanse of sapphire sea will be, says here, the 2 cheerleaders of the European austerity, Barroso and Van Rompuy. Then we have this Bilderberg academic henchman preaches austerity for the young, and of course that's what they target, of course, with the youth, is to get them, because a lot of older people may not be for it. But it says here, a distinguished academic is about to deliver a lecture on the virtues of austerity, and it says here, why the young should welcome austerity is the title of the article by this Mr. Ferguson, published by the BBC on June 17th. So it goes on and it basically says that the young Britain and the world should pay off national debts now to avoid the miserable future. So I saw this article and I thought I'd follow with it. Adidas sparks outrage with Shackles sneakers. So like I said, this is about targeting younger people and stuff like that. And they want to basically have them walking around with shackles on their shoes, and they buy it and pay for it, and they're proud of it, and they think it's cool to be slaves with shackles around their ankles. So, but yeah. Moving on, it says a new shoe unveiled by Adidas last week has kicked off a chain reaction as sneaker fans around the world slam the company for creating a racist design. See, so they turn it into racism, right? But if these things do go, I could see people wearing them because they'll make it cool, right? It's cool to be a slave, but they're making it into racism because only blacks were slaves, right? Only blacks were indentured servants. No, they weren't. So. But like I said, it's always those divisive issues that they throw in there. It says here, Carlos Slim, world's wealthiest man, says retirement age for regular people should be bumped up to 70 years old. That's right. And this would help to prop up the world's struggling economies. Remember, I just included that video of a Mexican, I don't know if he was vice president or whatever he was, but he was up there. And he was part of the CFR, and he was what? He was talking about a green economy for Mexico and global governance, right? So, Americans hanging on in recession, and it says here, the story of these people, it says, and this kind of goes in line with what the Rio summit, so that's why they're showing all this stuff like in the beginning videos to the sheeple. Next up, we have Americans hanging on in recession. So the voices of these people in this story and others tell the story of a country that, for all the economic turmoil of the past years, continues to believe things will get better. Well, that's because the media is telling them that, right? They're telling them two different things. Everything's going to crash. Everything's going to crash. They're telling governments to get, so that they can take on more bailouts. And then at the same time, they keep telling them that things are getting better and the economy is getting better, so go out and spend. And speaking of hanging on, we have this article from the UK, Cliff's Edge households teetering on the brink of poverty. It said as part of an in-depth investigation into the impact of the financial takeover by the international bankers, or the recession they're calling it, we look at households, working households, stretched to the breaking point. But the research suggests that for many households, the work at the unstable lower end of the income scale simply does not pay enough to keep pace with the living costs. Livelihoods are stretched to the breaking point. So moving on, we found this. We can see for miles and miles, world's biggest telescope is given a go-ahead. This is in the UK. This bad boy will take 10 years to build and will cost basically almost $1 billion for this telescope. So Britain's income is dwindling as recession continues. And it says here that millions will see pensions slash up to 20% as new EU rules are set to send annuities plummeting. Working families in the UK are living in a financial stress. It says here millions of working families in Britain are living on an economic cliff's edge. There it is again, despite the coalition's government's claim that people who work are better off. And then we have this, which is what? The world's biggest telescope going up in the UK. So it's going to take 10 years and almost $1 billion. We're going to buy a big telescope while their people are barely able to pay the bills. So it's just not, it's not just citizens here that are going to have their pensions slashed. Look at this. Soldiers sacked days before pension dates. Soldiers were basically fired before they qualified for full pensions. So families of servicemen have complained. So foreign demand for U.S. Treasury securities rose to a record high in April. China, the largest buyer of Treasury debt, increased its holdings slightly. And remember, the Federal Reserve just cleared them to go directly to them. They don't have to get any congressional authorization or anything. So it says here at least $50 billion in U.S. foreign arms sales for 2012. So foreign holdings of U.S. debt hit record high, at least $50 billion in U.S. foreign arms sales for 2012. So they had a record-breaking year for the military-industrial complex. So again, let's give them a clap. Good job, guys. Central bankers brace for euro breakup, at least that's what they say, over the next 5 years as banks fire drill for Greek elections. So banks have a fire drill. So it says right here the banks are on high alert and they are forming these quote special teams that will be on standby after the elections and that. A secret EU summit document shows first step to banking union over the next 10 years, pulling debt via Eurobonds and a political union. It says here, actually, it's going to be done by 2013. So it's going to have a single regulator to oversee banks across the 27 European Union states. Then we have this, Noonan of Ireland, presence at Bilderberg Group conference cost him $4,300. It says here, his fellow politicians wanted to know what he was talking about. Well, he's talking about growing the economy and restoring stability. IMF urges Europe to help refinance an Irish bank bailout, along with the UK and Osborne. They want a bailout too, and a pro-bailout party is winning in Greece. Obama's former professor says President Obama must be defeated because he failed to advance the progressive cause. We know the Muslim Brotherhood is a Western proxy and they just won in Egypt. as planned by the globalists in Venezuela, happiest country in South America. Thank you.